Good afternoon. What I'm going to say to you over the next 20 to 30 minutes is, in my view, something that I would describe as the anatomy of a crisis. When we face difficult situations in our lives, when countries face those situations, you end up using words like disruption, which in the English language may have a nuance, but I think that doesn't capture the enormity of the challenge which people have to face. If you're driving at 110 kilometers and you find a boulder in the center of the road, that's a crisis for you. You have to navigate it around it. Now, I think what this first slide intends to convey is that after 1973, this development, Russia, Ukraine, I'm choosing not to use any political descriptions, whether it was an attack or the military invasion, whatever. I'm leaving all that out. I'm talking about the hard facts. It created a disruption, or in my view, a crisis which is equal to the 1973 crisis. Why is the 1973 date important? I was still in the university. I was on the teaching faculty of a Delhi University college. Price of crude went up globally from $1 to $3, 3 times increase. What happened in 2022, February? Just to give you a background, we can go to the next slide. Roughly, the world consumes about 100 million barrels of crude oil in a day. Russia, at that point of time, was producing 11 to 13 million barrels. Now, if one country which is producing 11 to 13 million barrels goes off the market, the availability comes down from 100 minus 11 or 13. As it is, Venezuela was under sanction, Iran was under sanction. So if you compound that, you would come to a situation where the global energy situation suddenly changes. So what happened in the world when this happened? One neighboring country, Pakistan, spiraling energy prices, forced people to shut off electricity at 8 p.m. I leave it at that. Sri Lanka, worst economic crisis yet. Then prices went up 80%, 100%. I'm not going to go further into detail. Next slide. What were the options before us? In the period before the Russia-Ukraine development, we were importing, on an average, something like 5 million barrels of crude oil in a day, which was equally divided between 5 of our suppliers: Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, and 1 million barrels or 800,000 from all the others put together. Came this development, and suddenly we found ourselves having to navigate a very difficult circumstance. The options for India were very clear. Either we fall in line with this new development and stick to our original suppliers, in which case the oil price would have gone up. Can we go to the next slide? The one after that? Yeah. No, the one with the $137 per barrel. Now, typically, how does the oil trade work? You have established producers. A large number of the established producers are as part of a cartel. It used to be called OPEC, then it became OPEC Plus, and then there is the world outside. They will tell you, if you ask them, you should reduce the price. I never do, because it's a sovereign right. They have a resource. It's up to them whether they want to sell or leave it underground. They will say, no, we don't deal with price. We only deal with the amount of production we undertake and what we pass on to the market. Now, an undergraduate student of economics will tell you that if you reduce the amount of availability, the price has to be sensitive. So price went up to $137 a barrel, and gas prices went up to $73.56 per MMBTU. Now, even in a small disruption, the actual impact is not created by the buyer and seller. There is something called, where is that paper trade? Paper trade in oil is 30 times higher than physical trade. Now, I would have liked half an hour to explain this to you, but I'm going to simplify it. There are a lot of guys sitting there. When they see this happening, they are able to play the futures and ensure a market which, the poor buyer or seller have very little actual dealing with. So this is the kind of disruption which can take place. Next slide. Now, we had two options as per the previous slide. This gentleman, put this gentleman here. He's an US official. Why am I quoting him? Not because he's any authority, but not also because he's a friend. He used to be a counselor in the US mission when I was Joint Secretary on the Americas Division. No, I'm quoting him because it comes from a respectable, credible American official. One of the false narratives we were being subjected to, oh, you're buying oil from Russia. So to which my response was, so? So once my colleague, the External Affairs Minister, was going to Washington, and he called me, he said, what do I say? I said, if they raise the issue with you, you tell them that they buy more in an afternoon than I buy in a quarter.